Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series, and specifically the Arsenal News Show, the show in which we keep you guys up to date with all of the latest Arsenal transfer news, match day news, injury news, crazy news, and that's what we've got today. Plenty of stuff to talk about, plenty of things to get our teeth sunk into. But before we do, please make sure you drop a like on today's video and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here with those notifications turned on. And make sure that you never miss a show. You can also help support the channel by becoming a member by clicking that join button or going into the link in the description, which will take you to the members page. You can then access our Discord server and lots more goodies as well. And also, the last thing is that today is the day that we launch officially the Arsenal Way, which I'm very much looking forward to showing everybody. Myself and colleagues over at Reach will be producing daily Arsenal video content, including news shows, podcasts, reaction shows, Arsenal real life videos. The press conference, Arteta's press conference, will be going up on the channel. You'll be able to watch that over on there, pretty sure before almost anyone else. So if you like that stuff, you like watching Arteta's press conferences from like the journalist perspective, you're going to be able to do that on the channel as well. Lots of exciting stuff coming. I'm actually going to be doing some filming later on today with Bailey and doing some actual football, believe it or not. You get to see how bad I am. That'll be out probably around next week time. Looking forward though to the launch. If you have not yet subscribed, what the hell are you doing? There is so many of you that have helped support the channel already. It's actually crazy. I mean, just looking on the channel now, there is 741 subscribers and we're still yet to post our first video. That's insane. So if you still want to be part of that OG 1000, then make sure you click the link in the description. It'll take you to today's video, which is scheduled to be live at 9:30, so in an hour and a half's time. So make sure that you tune in for that. And then later on today, Arteta's press conference should also be going up on the channel too. Anyway, let's crack on though with today's news. And we start with Max Aarons talking about Arsenal's win over Norwich on the weekend, saying that you could tell Arsenal were under pressure. You could feel it from the fans. They were a bit tense. The players were a bit tense. You could feel it in the stadium. Going there as Norwich, we felt we could get something out of the game, and it was frustrating not to be honest. Max Aarons, of course, part of that Norwich side that lost 1-0 to Arsenal on Saturday. And it was a game in which you felt that Norwich definitely could have got something. Right at the end, Timo Pukki had a great chance. It was a good header in the first half as well. They did create a few chances, but if we're being real, Arsenal did dominate the game. 30 shots, 7 on target. Need to be more clinical, Arsenal for sure, but they were by far worthy winners of the match and did not deserve to come away with anything less than a win in that game. So maybe a bit of salt from Max Aarons. I'm fine with opposition players being a little bit salty. It means that Arsenal must be doing the right thing. Moving then on to our next story, and Jules Kounde has again been linked with a move to Arsenal. Of course, we know that the fact that Arsenal were interested in him earlier in the window, Edu really pushed for this signing at the start of the window, but it turned out that without Champions League football, Arsenal really never had a chance. And it feels like that would be the same if we were going into next season. Arsenal would need Champions League football to have any hope of securing the signing of Jules Kounde from Sevilla. It seems like Monchi would only ever accept the release clause in his contract, which is set at around 70 million euros. It's an incredibly high amount as well. So it is unlikely that we would see Arsenal go for Jules Kounde. I also think it's a weird link considering William Saliba would be returning next season. If anything, it's another sign that Saliba maybe does not have a future at Arsenal, which I would find really strange. Surely you've got the opportunity to bring Saliba back into the fold. I also think that with how Ben White is going to be starting most of Arsenal's games this season, Rob Holding may be a player that Arsenal look to move on either in January or in the summer for a sizable fee. You have to remember a 26, 27-year-old centre-back, England, not international, but certainly homegrown, and has that thing about him. So certainly we would be able to get a decent fee, in my opinion, for Rob Holding on a long-term deal and bring Saliba back into the fold. I really don't understand the links to these centre-backs right now. They don't make too much sense, but they're there. Now, Bukayo Saka, we had a great discussion yesterday around kind of whether or not we should keep Bukayo Saka, or if, say, a big bid of £100 million+ came in for Saka that we should sell. I am very much on the side of there is no need to sell Bukayo Saka, even if £100 million plus bid ever came in for Bukayo. We don't need to. We don't need the money. I know it sounds silly, and you might think, hold on, Arsenal haven't sold anyone recently. But it's true. Like, we don't actually need to sell Bukayo Saka in the grand scheme of things. You think we spent £150 million this summer. We sold Joe Willock for £25 million. We're going to get money in for Guendouzi that's going, for Mavropanos that's going on loan, obviously with those obligations to buy. Lucas Torreira could also earn us a pretty penny with the option to buy on his contract with Fiorentina. Hector Bellerin's future is still uncertain, but he should be playing week in, week out for Real Betis and maybe could garner a decent fee, even though he'll only have a year left on his deal in the summer of next year. You've got Kolasinac's situation still to sort out. Lacazette's wages are going to probably be gone, and Nketiah's wages, and he's going to be gone maybe January, maybe full-time. Reece Nelson could go next summer. Rob Holding, as I've mentioned, could also go. Ainsley Maitland-Niles could go. There is money to be made in those players that are surplus to requirements. And in my opinion, Arsenal, if they were to say sign a world-class striker and a world-class centre mid next summer, you look at that side, and I think there's some real potential. I think Leno is another player that could go for a decent fee. You bring in, say, a backup goalkeeper on the cheap, a Fraser Forster for absolutely nothing next summer. Why not try and do that? And suddenly you're in a situation where you look at the team, a lot of youth, a year older, a year more Premier League experience and development, plus two top-class players in centre midfield to add to Partey and Lokonga. And, of course, you've got, say, a striker that comes in to replace Lacazette that would compete and maybe even overtake Aubameyang next season. And I genuinely think that you've got the foundations of a really strong squad to compete for our targets next season. I don't know why we would sell Saka. It just creates more work for us to do to replace him admirably. I mean, there's players out there, arguably, that you could go for in a wider position. A Serge Gnabry back from Bayern Munich with a year left on his deal. But to sell Saka does not make any sense when we don't need that money, and there are other players we can move on and we'll have revenue again next summer. And we only, in my opinion, need to look at two key positions in the summer 2022 window, and we need to go big on transformative world-class players. So selling him, no chance. Absolutely no chance. Now, one of the most intriguing stories of the day has been the Leno and Ramsdale situation. Now, Bild reported, the German outlet, that supposedly Mikel Arteta has promised Leno that he will return in 2 weeks and therefore for the North London derby. One of the strangest stories I've honestly ever seen, to suggest that the goalkeeper has been promised a certain game that he will return and that it's not a case of two players competing for their positions. I just find ultimately very strange. Why would Arteta have promised this to the goalkeeper that has now been ousted from the number one position? What does that say to Ramsdale? You've come in, you've earned your place, you've played 2 games, you've played well in both of those games, you've made a difference with your distribution. Why on earth would you turn around and go, hold on a second, I've earned my number one spot. Why are you promising another goalkeeper? We have to take this story with a pinch of salt, absolutely. And we're going to be discussing it in a lot more detail on the Arsenal Way a little bit later on. So do make sure you click that link in the description to go join us. Me, Bailey, and Chris will be talking about this in a lot more detail at 9:30 a.m. So make sure you do click that link in the description. It's just strange. It's just such a strange story. And to be honest, if it turns out to have any element of truth, and we do see, say, if Ramsdale has a good game against Burnley and then against Spurs, we decide to bring Leno back in, that would be such a just undermining his own authority, undermining the own respect that he builds in the group. You don't give players games for the sake of giving them games in the Premier League. You just don't do that. So you can all try and play happy families, but it doesn't work that way in football. The players that play are the players that deserve to play. I just find it absolutely bizarre. We're going to get a lot of your thoughts, theories, and comments and questions about this story in just a second. But before we do, let's go on to two last things. Well, one last thing, really. Yesterday, well, not even yesterday. Actually, was it yesterday? I think it might have been. I think it might have been the day before yesterday this article went live on football.london. When I wrote a piece about Martin Ødegaard showing kind of the pressing of his game and why Arteta chose to sign him as one of the, kind of just suggesting a reason behind why he dropped Mesut Ozil and why Mesut Ozil was ousted from the squad and eventually, got rid of. and Martin Odegaard was brought in. Now, you probably know this by now. As soon as you say anything bad about Mesut Ozil, the cult following that he has garnered of completely not his fault. He doesn't do it. It's just happened. Um, the incredible amount of kind of organized attack towards my personal profile yesterday was, I've never quite experienced anything like it. It was a bit of a humbling experience, but not one that certainly deters me in any way from writing any differently or not writing anything critical about a player. And it certainly won't change the way I produce content in video or written form. But I just wanted to say to not focus on that, but actually take some of my own advice and focus on the positives. And that's certainly what came out yesterday, because the replies, the supportive messages that came in the wake of that targeted, organized abuse onto that article and onto me was unreal. So thank you to everyone that did send very nice messages. I had some amazing people send me some direct messages. Chris Wheatley in particular, I really appreciate the tweet and publicising the article as well. Kaya Kainak, Casey, James and Jay, and everyone that sent in messages, Chris and Tom too. Really appreciate that. A lot of my colleagues had my back, and I really appreciate that. And a lot of you guys that watch the show and read the articles and just interact on Twitter, a lot of you showed support there too. So genuinely, really appreciate that. And we move on, and that won't be changing anything. And if you haven't read the article, go and read the article, because it's actually quite interesting to find out about how Odegaard is pressing in that game against Norwich and how and why that has led to Mikel Arteta choosing to go for a player like him and then moving someone like Mesut Ozil that doesn't necessarily press in the same way. As I said already, if you haven't subscribed to the Arsenal Way, please do. Link is in the description for today's show at 9:30 a.m. Make sure you tune in and you become one of our first TAW 1000. That is what it is going to be. The TAW 1000, the Tour 1000 is if you want to be part of that. And keep a note of which number subscriber you were. And even if you don't join our first 1,000, you can keep a note of what subscriber you were. Add it to your Twitter bios, add it to your tweets, tweet it out. I am hashtag the Arsenal Way subscriber number this, whatever you are. Maybe you were number one. Incredible scenes if you managed to be the number one subscriber on the channel. But if you are in our first 1,000, thank you ever so much for the support. First show, as I say, out 9:30 a.m. UK time today. More discussion about Leno. Speaking of which, let's get plenty of your thoughts, your theories, your questions in the chat box. Let's go to Jasha, who says, Tom, is Saka only on 30 grand per week? If so, we need to sign him up to a better and longer deal, especially as his agents have recently been involved in protracted talks with 3 of our other players. You can imagine that contract is going to see an extension. Arsenal consider him, as they say, untouchable. They'll be looking to increase that wage as soon as possible, because there are clubs like Manchester City and Chelsea that will look to spend hundreds of £1,000s per week on a contract for Bukayo Saka. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind. People forget the fact that he's only 20 years old as well. Like, I think I've seen some things about him being overrated. He's 20. Like, he's 20. Let's get a bit real about this. It's unbelievable what he's done for the age that he is, what he's doing on the Premier League stage and on the international stage too. Let's get real. Nikhil says, Tom, could you see Serge Gnabry back at Arsenal, given that he's not happy at Bayern? Absolutely. If that was a route that we wanted to sign someone in a wider position that can also play centrally, I think Serge Gnabry is an absolutely fine option for the club to go for. MFB says, what happens if Arteta really does start Leno? Absolute meltdown, MFB. Absolute meltdown. I can't see anything other than the Arsenal fans losing their minds over that. So, watch this space, that is for sure. Arsenal Legend says, morning, Tom. Hope you're well. Ramsdale is more comfortable on the ball regarding his distribution. However, his shot-stopping ability is a cause for concern, as it was the worst last season. Arsenal Legends, I am well. Thank you ever so much for asking. Secondly, I think you're actually slightly off on the shot stopping. If you look at the expected conceded goals of Ramsdale and Leno last year, Leno was conceding ever so slightly under. Ever so slightly under what he was expected to. Ramsdale was pretty much dead on conceding what he's expected to. The difference between the two shot stopping is actually exceptionally low. Like, there is barely a difference between the two, but because Ramsdale's distribution is so much greater, he just is, and younger as well as a player, he's got so much more improvement to get from his game too. that I'm going to be interested to see kind of the XCG of Ramsdale throughout the season. But 2 games, 2 clean sheets. You can't say anything more than that. Aditya, I just missed your comment. No, where is it? I'll find it. Don't mention Ozil, mate. Still understand the vitriolic nature of the fan base, which loves a player which no longer is associated with the club. I don't. I really struggle with it, to be honest, that people are willing to throw abuse towards a fellow Arsenal fan for writing an article that was just about Odegaard's pressing. That's all that the piece was about. That's why I was so confused as to why I was being utterly targeted and being called every single name under the sun. But it was a piece about Odegaard's pressing and how that's the reason why Arteta would prefer to choose Odegaard. Nothing to do with... it wasn't me saying that Odegaard's better than Ozil or Ozil's worse than Odegaard. I don't think they are. I don't think you could categorically say at all that Odegaard is better than Ozil as a player. It's just not true right now. But any little thing, some very sensitive people are out there. Stephen Foote says, I think the Leno situation is a spurious attempt to unsettle the team, in my opinion. What are your thoughts? I mean, you never know. Well, you never know, Stephen. I'd hope that it isn't. I'd really hope that it's not. I saw some things about possible... I saw some things about the... What is it? The possible bust-up in training, but I never saw anything like that. We saw the clips and stuff, but I've not heard anything along those lines about a bust-up in training. Absolutely no idea. Venkatesh says, Tom, is the big reason, or is it a big season for Pepe? Could you see fans turning up on him if he doesn't have the season of what we expect of him? Do you see him as a long-term, or is he running out of time? Look, Nicolas Pepe's £72 million fee is always going to be associated with him. It is inescapable. You cannot get away from the figure that Arsenal paid. It's not Pepe's fault. It's completely Raul saying, yeah, where that falls to, but he's no longer at the club. So there's no more kind of, the accountability of that deal has been removed. So it's now all on Pepe to just perform and do what he can. I thought he was brilliant against Norwich. I thought he was lively. I thought he made stuff happen. Yes, his first touch wasn't the best in many scenarios, but I thought he was genuinely trying to really get something for the club. And in the end, it was his tenacity, his drive, his commitment that got us the ball across the box to find Aubameyang for the goal. And for that, you only have to say praising of the guy. John says, the idea of promising Leno a start is just the same thing as his treatment of Xhaka. It's self-inflicted BS from Arteta that is ridiculous. If it's true, John, that is obviously the caveat. If it's true, if and only it's true. Ish says, who is the world-class striker you would go for? It's a great question because there's not loads out there. It's the thing about you going for over a world-class, what you would consider world-class. If you think about what world-class strikers are there at the moment, I mean, list them. Lewandowski, Lukaku, Haaland, Ronaldo, I suppose, right now, Mbappe, world-class. That guy down the road, you probably have to put him in that category as well. I'm not sure Vlahovic is world-class yet. Definitely has the potential. I'm not sure that Lautaro Martinez is world-class yet. Possibly has the potential. Trying to think. Benzema, world-class striker. Suarez at Atletico Madrid. But there isn't loads. There's really not loads of world-class strikers out there, to be honest. And so Arsenal, whilst they should target as high as they can, I think they need to target someone that's got the potential to be a world-class player in a division. I really like Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think that he has the quality and the potential to become to become eventually England's number one striker. And you never know, maybe Arsenal's. Vlahovic, as I said, has got the opportunity to possibly develop into one of the best strikers in the world. You've then got players like, I'm going into Spain now, and I'm thinking of Alexander Isak, but he's still very young. And so 21-year-old, do we want to add another 21-year-old to the team? I'm not sure that's the right player for the balance of the squad. It's a really difficult one to find strikers at the moment. But you may have to choose someone that has the potential to be a really kind of high, frequent goal scorer, a Calvert-Lewin, a Youssef En-Nesyri, these types of strikers. Maybe that's what we need to look for. Let's scroll up and go to Chilongu, who says, aside from Lautaro, who are the 5 most viable striker targets? I mean, there you go. I suppose the 5 most viable, it's a really tough question to ask me off the top of my head, striking targets. I mean, viable. If Arsenal was getting to the Champions League, and I mean, you've got Haaland's situation with his with his buyout clause. It's always that dream scenario. You go, he's got a accessible buyout clause. If Arsenal performed a miracle and got into the Champions League, if I was Arsenal, I'd be like, look, Haaland, we'll pay you whatever you like. We'll pay you whatever you want, because that's just, why would you not? Why would you not throw your hat into the ring? I know it sounds ridiculous and fanciful, but a buyout clause of that level, it would be, in my opinion, silly not to not throw your hat into the ring and let him pick. But at least, I mean, if you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the raffle, sort of thing. But viable options, as I say, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think you can get if you get into Europe and you're willing to pay a big fee for him. I think you look at Yusuf En-Nesyri from Sevilla as a genuinely really good target. You could look and see how Boadu gets on. I think he's now at Monaco. Let me just have a look. He's still quite young. He's 20. He's 20s. I mean, it's probably not the best profile to go for, to be honest. Who else is there out there? You surely, chat box, you can help me out with some strikers that you think are viable. Vlahovic is for me is a really good prospect. Aditya says DCO is too expensive. I mean, if you've got the money, what's too expensive? That's the difference. Is if you've got the money to pay, what is too expensive? It's a really tough one. And Kounde is a really odd one. Obviously, I know he scored a hat-trick last night, so that's obviously going to really raise his profile. I'm really annoyed that, I mean, we really let Andre Silva go to RB Leipzig, and I thought that at 20-odd million quid was a really good move that Arsenal missed out on. We really could have, we really could have pushed for something there, and we missed out on that one, to be honest. So Andre Silva in his mid-20s, really good top goal scorer, someone that we could have gone for. Antonio's just a bit too old. I think he's now over 30. Bamford's a weird choice. Again, I would like to see how he gets on this season, and we will see how he gets on. He's had one season in the Premier League. I think he got, 16-ish goals last year. He's an unpopular choice. He's not going to be the most popular pick, but that's certainly an interesting one. Patrick Schick had a really good Euros, but wasn't amazing last season for, I want to say, Leverkusen. And I know he scored against Dortmund the other day, but we'll see how he gets on. Maybe he's someone to keep your eye on. Ollie Watkins, Luka Jovic, Weghorst I'm not keen on. Too one-dimensional. Don't think he would fit into what we would want to try and play like in the future. Yeah, Lukaku, you're dreaming, Rona. Benzema, wink, wink. Yeah, we missed the boat. We missed the boat. Claudia says, Ajork, who plays for Strasbourg. Not sure how old he is, but I know that one of our members actually brought him up on a previous show. I think even, who was it who brought him up? I can't remember, but someone definitely did. Martinez was the dream. Tammy Abraham, still certainly one that I don't think people should write off necessarily. Danny Ings would have been a good backup. Distribution and hold-up players better than what we have. Injury record would have put me off. Marcus Thuram says, Aji, that there are options. Maybe it's one for an article when I've done a little bit more research. But it's a position on the pitch in which I feel Arsenal need to target in 2022 with a top quality, frequent, clinical goal scorer that's not one-dimensional, that's good in the air as well, an all-round jack of all trades, master of most of them. That's what I would be looking for in the summer of 2022. Anyway, I'm going to round the show off there. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Link in the description to the 9:30 a.m. show today on the Arsenal Way. Make sure you come over, subscribe if you haven't already, and tune in for daily Arsenal content over with my colleagues from Reach, working closely with the guys at football.london, and a lot more as well. Some really exciting stuff. Arteta's press conference will also be hopefully up on there today as well. I don't mean a reaction to it. I mean the actual press conference will be going live up on the channel. So make sure that you go and subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.